Hey LX Army, and welcome back. Today we're starting a new series that has been in high demand from my dominant coaching clients. How to solve submissive entitlement that is toppling the power gap they claim to crave. And you pet players out there are going to find this series particularly helpful to your dynamics because I'm using my dog, actual canine, Jamie, to help me illustrate some powerful connections between dog training techniques and consensual behavior modification in DS dynamics. But this info doesn't just apply to pet players. Do you feel like no matter what you do as a dominant, it's never enough? Are you struggling to keep up with your submissive's desires and demands for play? Do you feel like nothing more than a kink dispenser? Are you desperate to stop the disrespect and topping from the bottom that's been happening? If you can relate, be sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on because today I'm starting a new series that's going to help you understand the root of this behavior with an exclusive self-assessment. Now, the questions of how to stop entitlement and how to deepen submissive surrender are two of the most common questions I have received lately from my femdom clients who are desperately trying to assert more authority and step into more dominance at the behest of their submissive husbands. And that's the first point that I want to make. Please don't refer to yourself as a submissive if you have no intention of surrendering, if you have no desire to yield, if you are incapable of humility. If you're a submissive because you want the submissive experience in kink and you don't want to initiate or lead during sex, just call a duck, you're a sexual bottom, not a submissive. Here's the thing, that's not a bad thing, that's okay. See, we've put so much shame, I think, on this submissive and bottom, and it's more noble to be a submissive. I think it's more noble to just call a duck and be honest and self-aware. So there's nothing wrong if you're just into that. If there's nothing wrong with being unwilling or incapable of authentic submission and being aware of that, but acknowledging that you still need to get out of your head in sex or through a masochistic experience. Acknowledging that is a good thing. Because what we misdiagnose, we mistreat. And there will be deep confusion and heartache and strife and massive incongruencies in your dynamic when you claim on one hand to be submissive, but want to remain in control. And that's what the majority of my femdoms are telling me is happening to them. So, what's the root of this destructive cycle? And more importantly, is it possible to reverse this? And my answer comes in two distinct parts. Yes, it's possible, but damn, it's going to be a challenge. And that's not meant to discourage you. It's just meant to lead you to the truth. And here's what I found to be key in this discussion. This cycle, this destructive cycle, it all starts with a form of fear. This entitlement and expectations, and I'm going to break it down for you, begins with the form of fear. Whether it's an overt fear of rejection or abandonment or something more sneaky like insecurity, desperation, or control that often manifests as ego. Do you remember the flow of intimacy I often refer to? Safety, trust, vulnerability, then intimacy. Well, I found that submission has a very similar flow, starting with humility, trust, and surrender. In other words, when we feel secure and safe in ourselves, we have the ability to cast aside the protective shards of perfectionism and control. And we can humble ourselves to receive instruction and learn from another. Only once we're able to humble ourselves are we capable of trusting someone worthy of our trust. And when we can find rest in that surrender, we can experience the bliss of submission. And that's the goal, right? To get out of your head and to get into your body, to be overwhelmed with positive sensations, to deeply and intimately connect with someone that you love and trust, to experience deep emotional and physical release, to escape reality, right? But it's your humility that gets you there, not your desire. But what happens? What happens when you are led to submission? You're on that path, not by humility from a secure and safe place of identity, but from a place of desperation to obtain your desires. If you start from a place of this desperation, this desperate desire for kink, you'll view your dynamic through a selfish lens because you're so focused on how your desires and needs are lacking and how you can obtain them. When the dynamic is viewed through that lens of selfishness, then control often steps in next. Why? Because control is the most efficient way to get what you want. It is. You don't have to be patient or yield or comply or consider anyone else. If you can overtly or covertly control, you can get what you want. And at that point, entitlement is running the show. And you have sabotaged your very chances for submission. So the question now is, how can this cycle be reversed, right? Can we back this up a little bit? How can we restart from a healthy place that leads to true submission and bliss? Well, I believe the antidote to entitlement is surrender. But as we just illustrated, surrender requires trust and humility. And here's the important point. Trust includes the belief that the dominance way is superior. Oh, I'm going to just state that again. Trust includes the belief that the dominance way is superior. In other words, entitlement says, my way is the best and I deserve to get my way. Humility says, my way isn't always the best. And trust says, I want to do it your way. And dominance, if you're struggling with entitlement or topping from the bottom in your dynamic, this is where you need to focus your energy and attention, showing your submissive that your way is the best way. That's what inducement is all about. Seducing your submissive to your way of doing things and your point of view so that your desires become their desires. But let me set you free on this point, dominance. It's not all on you, okay? Yes, you should be knowledgeable. Yes, strive for excellence. Yes, continue to learn and grow. Yes, be consistent. Yes, take up your space. Yes, self-advocate and do so consistently. All of these. But if your submissive is incapable of seeing you as superior or unwilling to adjust to that paradigm as your dynamic progresses, the lack of surrender is on them, not you. All right? But this point right here, where they're not willing to yield, they don't see you as superior, but they want the submissive experience, this is where insidious manipulation often comes into place. This is what so many of my femdoms are dealing with right now. Because when you're dealing with someone who claims to be submissive, but they're unwilling or incapable of giving up control or yielding to another, this is what happens. They're so consumed by their cravings for kink that they kill the connection that creates it by insatiably pursuing their own will. Any of my femdoms, can you relate to this? Are you living this out? If you feel like this might be happening to you, might be in your dynamic, I want to help you out, okay? I want to help you determine if you're being manipulated in your dynamic by a pseudo-submissive. And to help you out, I've created a brand new resource for you on Patreon, my emotional manipulation assessment for dominance, all right? This 5-page download includes a 19-point self-assessment so you can wade through any confusing patterns to determine if you're being manipulated, and if so, what level of manipulation is taking place in your dynamic and what you can do about it. Just go over to patreon.com/LXerotica to get instant access. But for our purposes today, here's a condensed version of that assessment, all right? So all I want you to do is, after every statement, note if you have felt this way rarely, occasionally, or frequently for the past 6 months or more, or for the duration of your dynamic if your relationship is younger than 6 months, all right? First one, do you feel discouraged, anxious, or overwhelmed by the thought of planning a scene? Do you feel like your performance as a dominant outweighs your fundamental role as a partner in a loving relationship? Do you feel the pressure to continuously read, research, and learn about BDSM, innovate, or increase the intensity of play for fear of disappointing your partner? Do you feel that you must act, speak, or dress lifestyle in order to truly fulfill your partner? And do you fear being viewed as boring, vanilla, or an imposter if you aren't kinky enough as a dominant? All right, so for every rarely answer, give yourself 1 point. For every occasionally answer, give yourself 2 points. And for every frequently answer, give yourself 3 points. Now add those guys up, all right? And the closer your score is to 15 points, the higher the likelihood that you're experiencing some toxic manipulation in your dynamic that really, really needs to be addressed. So go on over to patreon.com/LXerotica for the full 19-point assessment, as well as my recommended action plans to help you navigate wherever you're at. Okay, whatever your score is, I've got an action plan to help you out. And be sure you're subscribed and have those notifications turned on, because next week we're continuing this series as I illustrate 6 dog training methods and mindsets that will help you shut down selfish entitlement and develop a devoted submissive in its place.